The first time my wife asked me if I regretted never sleeping with other women, I felt something inside me die. We had been married for 8 years, together for 10, and I thought what we had was rare. We were each other's first, our only, and I truly believed that made us unbreakable. To me, it wasn't something we missed out on, it was proof we'd chosen right the very first time. But the way she looked at me that night, the quiet sadness in her eyes when I told her I didn't regret a thing, that was the first crack in what I thought was a perfect marriage. At first, I didn't even notice it happening. She started a new job at a marketing firm in downtown Denver, and she struggled to fit in. My wife's always been reserved, the type who keeps a small circle, who'd rather spend Friday nights on the couch than at a bar. I encouraged her to go out with her coworkers, to make friends. And she did. That's when the late nights started. Drinks after work turned into bar hopping. Just girl time, she'd say, but I felt it slipping away from me. I'd stay home, waiting, dinner cold on the table, while she laughed with people I'd never met. At first, I told myself not to be the controlling husband. I didn't want to be the guy who told his wife she couldn't have fun. But the truth is, I felt left behind. Every time she walked through the door smelling like perfume and liquor, every time she brushed off my questions with a half smile, I felt a little smaller. And then came the manager. He was new, younger than us, confident in a way that made her talk about him constantly. First it was work stuff, stories from the office. But then it was little comments, how funny he was, how refreshing it felt to be around someone so ambitious. The way she said his name, like it tasted sweet in her mouth, made my stomach twist. I asked her about it once. She shrugged. Don't be jealous, it's nothing. But I wasn't stupid. It was something. That's when the conversation started to change. Late at night, lying in bed, she'd ask me strange questions. Did I ever wish I'd had more experience? Didn't I feel like I missed out by only being with her? I told her no, every time. She was all I ever needed. But she'd just go quiet and roll over. A few weeks later, she hit me with it. She wanted to open our marriage. I swear, I felt the floor disappear under me. I asked her if it had anything to do with him, with the manager. She denied it, too quickly. Said it wasn't about anyone specific, just about not wanting regrets. She wanted to explore, but still keep me. I should have said no. I should have drawn a line right there. But I didn't. Because I loved her? Because I didn't want to be the reason she felt trapped. Because I was terrified that saying no would make her leave me anyway. So, I agreed. And that's how it started. She went on dates. She had one-night stands. And eventually, it wasn't just casual fun. She was basically in a relationship with the manager. She'd come home glowing, like she'd just lived a second life somewhere I wasn't invited. I tried. I really did. I downloaded apps, I forced myself to go on dates, but it all felt fake. Awkward dinners, empty conversations. Nothing clicked. Most nights, I stayed home, waiting for her, pretending it didn't rip me apart. She'd check in sometimes. Ask if I was okay. But nothing changed. She still came home late, smelling like cologne that wasn't mine, telling stories that didn't include me. I started to feel like I was disappearing. But then, I met someone. And that's where everything shifted. She wasn't like my wife. She wasn't even like anyone I'd ever known. And for the first time in years, I felt seen. Wanted. Alive. But that wasn't the worst of it, not even close. The first time she saw me happy with someone else, she suddenly remembered she had a husband. For months, she had been out with her friends, with him, with anyone but me. She was always busy. Always glowing from nights I wasn't part of. But the moment she realized I was seeing someone, she changed. At first, it was small things. She came home earlier. She made dinner for the first time in years, waiting for me at the table with candles and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She started showing up at my job with takeout, like some lovesick newlywed. But I wasn't fooled. When I looked at her across the dinner table, all I could see was the night she spent with him. The excuses. The empty bed. Her whispers about not wanting regrets. She kept asking me, "How's your day? What's new? Do you need anything?" But the words sounded rehearsed, like she was auditioning for a role she'd already thrown away. And when I didn't immediately melt back into her arms, she got nervous. One night, she came to bed in lingerie, the same one she used to wear years ago. She touched my chest and whispered, "I want to show you how much I love you." I laughed. I didn't mean to, but it came out like a knife. "Now?" I asked. "After all this time? What about your manager? What about all the nights I sat here waiting while you were out finding yourself?" She froze. Tears welled up, but she didn't answer. She just turned over and cried into her pillow until she fell asleep. The next morning, she said it. "I want to close the marriage." She looked like a little girl confessing a secret, terrified I wouldn't forgive her. She said she regretted everything. That her friends had egged her on, that the manager had pushed her. That it was exciting at first, but it cost her too much. She swore she never stopped loving me. That I was all she ever wanted. But love doesn't look like what she gave me. And I told her that. "I'm not sure I can ever see you as my wife again." That's when she broke. She sobbed in my arms, shaking, whispering apologies like they could undo the damage. That night, she quit her job. She blocked her friends. She swore it was over with him. But I didn't let go of the woman I had met. The one who actually made me feel alive. We went to therapy. I sat there as my wife confessed everything, the flirting, the secret touches before the marriage was even open, the thrill of sneaking around. She said she never technically cheated, not until I gave her permission, but she admitted to other things. Things that weren't sex, but close enough to rip me apart when I heard them. She broke down in that office, wailing into her hands. The therapist asked me how I felt. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But all I said was, "Empty." Later, she told me why she stopped seeing the manager. She said she overheard him bragging about her to a coworker. "She's so easy," he'd laughed. "Just another distraction." That's when she realized she was nothing more than a joke to him. That she'd burned down her marriage for a man who didn't even respect her. I wish I could say I felt sorry for her. But instead, all I felt was rage. She begged me to move away with her, start fresh somewhere new. She promised she'd do anything. But I couldn't say yes. Not yet. So, I started packing. That's when her phone rang. It was one of her old friends, the same ones who convinced her this was all empowering. The girl was sobbing. She had hooked up with the manager too. And now? She thought she was pregnant. Her boyfriend found out. Their relationship exploded. And suddenly, I saw it all clearly. It wasn't just my marriage falling apart. It was a whole group of people setting fire to their lives, all because they wanted a taste of something forbidden. I moved into an apartment. I called a divorce lawyer. And for the first time, I felt like I wasn't just losing my wife. I was losing my entire world. But that wasn't the worst of it. Not even close. I used to think she was the safest place in the world. Now I couldn't even look at her without remembering his name. We met in college, back when life was simple and stupid and full of dreams we thought were permanent. I was a sophomore, broke, eating ramen noodles twice a day, and she was this quiet freshman with dark hair and eyes that always looked like they were holding back a laugh. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't the type everyone noticed when she walked into a room. But I noticed. God, did I notice? Our first date wasn't even meant to be a date. We went to the campus library to study, and instead we spent 3 hours talking about nothing. I remember the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, the way she leaned closer when she was actually interested. That night, when I walked her back to her dorm, she kissed me first. Quick, soft, almost like she regretted it as soon as it happened. But I didn't. I knew I never would. That was who we were. Awkward, young, figuring it out together. And for years, I thought that bond, being each other's first, each other's only, made us untouchable. But sitting in that apartment after moving out, surrounded by boxes that used to be our life, I couldn't stop replaying one particular memory. It was our 5th anniversary. We had saved up for months to go to a little Italian restaurant just outside the city. The place had red checkered tablecloths, a piano player who couldn't stay in tune, and a bottle of cheap champagne we splurged on anyway. She had dressed up, wearing this navy dress that made me forget anyone else even existed. Halfway through dinner, she leaned across the table, squeezed my hand, and whispered, "We'll never need anyone else." Right. I smiled so hard my cheeks ached. Never. That night, we promised each other that what we had was enough. And now? Years later? That same woman had begged me to let her sleep with other people. That memory haunted me because it showed me what we lost wasn't just intimacy, it was the promise. The belief that we were enough for each other. That belief was dead. And I wasn't sure it could ever come back. Meanwhile, she kept calling. She'd cry on the phone, swearing she was different now. She'd beg me to believe she never stopped loving me. But love doesn't erase the night she came home smelling like him. Love doesn't erase the tears she brushed away when I told her she was all I needed. I thought moving out would quiet the storm. It didn't. Because people talk. Friends, co-workers, family, they all had their versions. "Did you really tell her to open the marriage?" one old friend texted me. Another just said, "Man, I heard some wild stuff. Hope you're okay." Even my mom called after someone at church whispered something about me. I wasn't just losing my wife. I was losing my reputation, my place in the world. Everywhere I went, it felt like eyes followed me, like people were waiting to confirm the rumor. "Oh, that's the guy. The open marriage guy." And then came the final blow. I went to a party, just to feel normal, just to breathe. Someone I barely knew handed me a drink, smirked, and asked, "So, are you the guy who let his wife sleep around?" I froze. I didn't answer. I didn't fight. I just left. And that's when I realized, this wasn't just my private heartbreak anymore. This was a story other people were telling for me. A story I couldn't control. And if I didn't figure out how to take my life back, I was going to disappear completely. But that wasn't the worst of it. Not yet. The first time someone called me the guy with the open marriage, I wanted to throw my drink against the wall. I thought moving out would put distance between me and the chaos, but it only made it worse. Because once people start telling your story for you, they don't stop. They twist it. Stretch it. Turn it into entertainment. My wife's old company became a rumor mill. Everyone speculated about who had slept with who knew what, who had dirt. HR even called her in, questioning her about inappropriate relationships. She told me about it in a shaky voice one night, crying over the phone. Meanwhile, her so-called friends started abandoning her one by one. The same women who had convinced her to live a little stopped answering her calls. Some blocked her completely. Others messaged me, begging me not to drag them down with her. And the manager? He turned on her too. Claimed she had harassed him, that she had made up their relationship. But when other women came forward, saying he'd pulled the same tricks with them, his house of cards collapsed. The office split into factions, some saying my wife was a victim, others saying she ruined everything by not keeping her private life separate. But out here, in my world, it was just as bad. Friends texted half questions like they wanted gossip more than truth. My mom asked me what was happening after hearing something at church. Everywhere I went, I was defending myself to people who didn't even know half the story. And through it all, my wife called me every week. Always crying. Always apologizing. But her tears didn't stop her from weaponizing the divorce. At first, she swore she wanted it to be peaceful. Then her lawyer sent a list of demands so long it felt like she was trying to bankrupt me, the house, the car, half my savings, even the dog. She even claimed I'd been emotionally neglectful, cherry-picking texts where I'd admitted feeling disconnected. In mediation, she broke down in tears, sobbing about how lonely she was, how she'd lost all her friends. And for one split second, I felt guilty. But then I remembered, this wasn't an accident. It was choices. Her choices. And then the final betrayal, I found out she had withdrawn nearly $5,000 from our savings account a week before we separated. She said it was for living expenses, but she'd rented a 2-week Airbnb and bought new furniture. I wanted to fight. My lawyer urged me to fight. But I was tired. I didn't want to drag this out. So I let it go. Meanwhile, Sumin, the one bright spot in all this, started getting pulled into the fire. At first, it was whispers. Strangers leaving nasty comments on her small art business page, calling her a homewrecker, asking if she felt proud of being the upgrade. She laughed it off at first, but then she stopped posting altogether. I caught her one night, deleting hateful DMs with this exhausted look on her face. "It's just noise," she said, forcing a smile. But I could see it wasn't. The worst was when her mother in South Korea got messages from strangers on Facebook, calling her daughter a husband stealer. That was the first time I saw Sumin cry. Not loud. Not hysterical. Just quiet tears as she sat at the kitchen table, whispering, "I didn't ask for any of this." I felt sick. Because she was right. She didn't. I had dragged her into the wreckage of a marriage I couldn't escape cleanly from. And then came the dinner. We were out together, trying to pretend we could live normally, when my phone buzzed. It was my wife. Crying. She said she had just seen a photo of me and Sumin online. She said she couldn't believe how fast I'd moved on. She begged me to just listen. And like an idiot, I did. I hung up the phone and realized I'd just betrayed them both. My ex-wife, because I was giving her hope. And Sumin, because she sat across from me at that dinner table, staring at the man who still hadn't fully cut the cord. Later that night, Sumin asked the question I'd been dreading. "Do you need closure with her, or am I just filling the space until you get it?" I swore I wanted her. I swore I was done with my wife. But I could see in her eyes that she wasn't convinced. And honestly? Neither was I. That was the night I realized I wasn't just losing one relationship. I was on the edge of losing both. And what happened next made sure of it. The letter smelled like her. The same soap she used to keep in our bathroom. And for the first time in years, I didn't know whether to cry or burn it. It came with no return address, just my name, written in handwriting I knew too well. 6 pages, front and back. She said she was in rehab. She didn't say where, only that it was a place with no mirrors and too much oatmeal. And then she confessed. She wrote about her mother teaching her that men only love you if you give them a reason every day. She said she chased attention like an addict, mistaking it for love. She admitted she'd been drinking more than I ever realized, lying about late nights long before the marriage was open. She admitted she never planned on sleeping with the manager, but the attention, the way he made her feel young again, was a drug she couldn't stop taking. She wrote, "I didn't want to be loved. I wanted to be wanted. There's a difference. And I only figured it out when it was too late." But the last page cut the deepest. "I hope she's good to you. I hope you let her love you without testing her every step like you did with me. I don't want to be part of your story anymore, but thank you for being part of mine." No signature. Just one final line, "Please don't write back." I sat there, reading it over and over, wondering if it was mercy or punishment. Weeks later, I met her one last time. At a park. Public, safe, neutral. She looked smaller, like life had wrung her out and she was just starting over. She smiled and said, "I was afraid you wouldn't come." I told her, I was afraid I would. We talked like strangers who remembered too much. Rehab, her cousin, her new routines. And before we left, she said something that stuck. "I don't want forgiveness. I just want to be understood, even if it's too late." And for the first time, I understood her. Not enough to take her back, but enough to let go of the hate. That hug was the last we ever shared. Not hungry. Not desperate. Just human. When I went home, Sue Min was painting. She asked if I went. I said yes. She asked if I felt done. I said yes. And she nodded. Then let's stop dragging ghosts around. We tried again. She even got a job offer in Seattle, a chance to start fresh. But when she asked if I'd go with her, I realized something I hadn't been ready to face. It wasn't about running away. It was about choosing who I was, without anyone else's shadow. So, I stayed. She left. No dramatic goodbye. Just a hug at the airport, a promise to call. After she left, I repainted the apartment. Bought a new couch. Changed my phone number. And for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for a call, or an apology, or a second chance. I wasn't waiting at all. One night, sitting on the floor surrounded by boxes, I realized something terrifying and freeing. My past wasn't going to be the loudest voice in the room anymore. For the first time, it was quiet. Not happy. Not exciting. Just quiet. And that quiet felt like peace. It wasn't love I found in the end, it was silence. And for the first time, silence felt like freedom.